Exo One, surreal, captivating, and at times alien, is an immensely satisfying extraterrestrial adventure flying across procedurally generated exoplanets that range from tundra wastes to arboreal forests. Developed by solo indie developer Exbleative, a 5-year project has accumulated to a visually stunning and at times even borderline meditative video game. Through vivid coloring, minimalist design, an excellent soundtrack, and a go-at-your-own-pace feeling, Exo One doesn't challenge you with waves of enemies, bosses, or health bars, but instead serves a more cathartic experience, giving you environmental problem-solving, physics puzzles, and a mysterious, enigmatic plot to unravel as you reach and complete each planet. Exo One sees you navigating procedurally generated planets in an enigmatic spacecraft, attempting to reach a monolith that will launch you to your next planet. You have 2 shapes to choose from, one being a ball that you can use to roll along the ground, and the other being a disc you use to glide and even full-on fly through certain levels. As primarily a physics-based game, the whole idea is maintaining a high velocity, obtaining power upgrades to boost your speed and glide capabilities, and stack all of this through these varying planets, uncovering a plotline that's just as enigmatic as the ship you pilot. There is this fantastic feeling of velocity you get from the physics-based movement system, especially when you're flying around in your glider form. There's a small learning curve to getting down this movement system, but it's really simple once you get the hang of it. Each planet comes with their own set variations from one another. One planet will be pure ocean, allowing you to dive and practically skip yourself across the ocean surface. The other will have helium storm clouds, keeping you flying around at Mach 12 in a borderline Kugelblitz state. The way the planets vary terrain-wise and throw light environmental problem-solving like strong winds or intense lightning storms keeps the pace of the game varied and makes a really excellent use of the physics-based system you use to maneuver through the game. On each planet, you'll find a power-up that sometimes requires you to complete light environmental puzzles or exploration. These power-ups will increase the amount of time you can glide for on typical planets as you go through your playthrough, and they also increase the maximum amount of energy and momentum your craft can have and store. Ultimately, the building feeling of momentum you get by the end of the game is pretty radical, but sadly, you don't get these power-ups on repeat trips through the game. After completing the game, you get a final time too, so revisiting this for time trials would be really awesome. Maybe in the future, with a few patches and updates, having some sort of a level selector and fully skippable cutscenes, I think Exo One would be a really great game to revisit for killing time and playing something that's just really satisfying, both visually and with its physics-based gameplay. Each planet has their own contrasting colors and major features, from volcanic magma-laden crags to frozen mountain peaks. Even though the procedural generation takes away from the environment slightly, the color palette and a few hand-laid objects keep the procedural side of the game from detracting too heavily from the grand picture. A level that really stuck out to me visually was the level where you orbit a sun and have to land on a few asteroids that each have their own gravitational pull. Outside of the fun gameplay mechanic, the intense hues of orange and red and yellow blooming against the black expanse of space was just incredibly visually striking. The bokeh and lens dirt catches the colors very well and just adds to the entire visual experience, pulling and distorting colors as you head through each planet. As each planet is procedurally generated instead of handmade, there is this general sporadic feeling to things, stretched textures and spiky geometry that doesn't quite detract from the whole experience, but also equally doesn't serve it any justice. This is kind of hard to hold against the game as it is indie developed, and the focus was large-scale environments to make use of both the velocity and the physics, and really making multiple maps of this scale by hand as a single person would be an extreme feat for any one person to do in a reasonable amount of time. So to me, even though it lacks professional polish, the vistas and color palettes more than make up for the technical limitations. Exo One's soundscape is fittingly ambient and surreal, catching moments and swelling from a general lull to meet some pretty awesome visual landscapes, and having serene moments to equally match. The soundtrack overall is an excellent choice for this game. Environmental sound effects like rain and thunder are great for the atmospheric soundtrack as well, adding an organic layer to the electronic and synthy sounds. Even though not all of the ship's sound effects are great, the flying and rolling noises can sometimes be a little bit overdone. The sound effect for breaking the sound barrier is fittingly punchy and adds to the overall feeling of velocity. Overall though, the sound design might be one of my favorite parts of Exo One. The enigmatic plot of Exo One sees you as a disembodied space pilot that came into contact with this unknown technology, and therefore decides to use it to save what is presumably his crew as their shuttle burns up in Jupiter's atmosphere. Bits of dialogue are chopped up, distorted, and reversed, and fed to you piece by piece throughout the game, sometimes sounding like multiple languages, but it's hard to tell with the way they're edited. As you head through each exoplanet, your past is mysteriously and vaguely flashed in front of you, and bits of dialogue from the events of the crash are spoken in the garbled and disjointed fashion. The minimalist and mysterious plot actually serves the game very well. You'll find yourself wondering, what the fuck does this even mean, quite a few times, but it all gets answered in the final moments of the game. Personally, I really enjoyed the story. It's not too deep that it requires a ton of effort to understand, but unraveling it along the way and the final revelation is pretty dang good overall. Exbleative's Exo One is a surprisingly enjoyable indie game, and even though I do wonder if it would have served the game better to see more handcrafted elements of sound design and world design, still manages to achieve a relaxing and enjoyable experience well worth noting along other great indie experience type games like Journey, Flower, Abzu, and the like. If you enjoy fast and exhilarating physics, or peaceful, calming, and meditative experiences, Exo One manages to have a duality that many of its predecessors don't have, though it maybe lacks some of the handcrafted design that added a personal touch to past experience-type video games. If you have picked up Exo One, maybe sound off and let me know what you think of it in the comments down below. It's had a pretty quiet release, so this might go totally under the radar for some folks. But if you want to pick the game up for yourself, it's out on PC and Xbox. The links for that will be in the description down below. But for now, thank you for watching, and hopefully I'll catch you in the next one. Until then, peace.